Okay, so let's try writing our own selection sort. So I have another snippet called sorting selection, and I'm going to start by just defining a function. I'll call it selection sort, and it takes an array. And at the end, we're going to return that array. So let's say we want to call it on the array, I'm going to do even numbers this time, 10, and I'll add a single odd number at the end there, and 17. Okay, so this is what we're going to test it out with. So what we want to do to start is we can just start by looping over every item. That's a pretty standard place to start. So for var I equals 0, I less than array.length, I plus plus. Okay, and if we look at our pseudocode, store the first element as the smallest value we've seen so far. So let's make a variable, and we'll just call it lowest or min, and we're going to set it equal to I. So that's the position of the smallest element. At least at the beginning, we don't know any better. So this is the smallest thing we've seen. It's the only thing. And what we want to do is compare that to the next item after it, and then the next item after that, and after that, and after that. And if at any point we find a value that's smaller, then we're going to change lowest. So let's do another loop to make that work. Let's go with j, and we're going to set j rather than 0, because remember, we don't want to we don't need to loop over every part. So let me put this in a better way. If we're starting here with our first outer loop, I is referencing here, we don't want to compare it to I again. What we want to compare it to is I plus 1. We want to compare it to this. Or if we're at this point in the array, so if I is now 2, and these two are already sorted, we don't want to start comparing I of 2 to j of 0. We want to compare to 19, which means that we need to go one higher than whatever I is. So we can just do j equals I plus 1, like that. And then we'll do while j is less than array.length, j plus plus. Perfect. And if we just did a simple console.log just to show what we're looking at, let's just do I and j so you can see the comparisons that happen. And we execute this. So no sorting happens, but we start by comparing 0 to 1, 0 to 2, 0 to 3, 0 to 4. Then the next time through, we're going to compare 1 to 2, 1 to 3, and 1 to 4. And then 2 to 3, 2 to 4, and then finally 3 to 4. So this is working. I mean, we're not doing any sorting, but these are the comparisons we want. We don't want to, for example, after our first pass, compare 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and then start over and compare 0 again. We don't want to ever look at this element because whatever is here at the end will be sorted. It will be the smallest value. That's how selection sort works. So now we just need a simple conditional in here to check what the value of the array is at the lowest, and then compare that to the value of the array at j. So we're going to have array of lowest, and then array of j, like that. And we want to know if we could do this either way. We could say if array of j is less than array of lowest, or if our current lowest is greater than the array of j. Yeah, I think I prefer logically, I think it makes sense this way, because we're looking, okay, anyways, we're looking for the lowest item, so I like to do it this way. If the array of j is less than our current lowest. Remember, the lowest is just a number like 0. So our first time through, if we walk through this, I is 0, which means lowest is 0, and then j is going to start at 1. So we compare if array of j is less than array of lowest. Is array of 1 less than array of 0? Yes, it is. So if that's the case, we're going to set lowest now to be equal to j. So we've now updated the value of lowest. So if we walked through, we start at the beginning with I set to 0, j is 1, and lowest is now going to be 1 because we just updated it. So it's referring to this item. But next time through, we have I is still 0. What is j now? Well, j is going up by 1, so j is 2. So if we compare array of 2 to array of lowest, which is 1, that's comparing these two. Now 10 is smaller, so we're going to set lowest equal to j, which means lowest is now 2, right? index of 2. Now we could repeat this, and if we did, we would go I is 0 still, j is now going to be 3, but the lowest is still 2 because 19 is not greater, or 10 is not less than 19. One more time, I is 0, j is going to be 4. We're looking at the last item, and we check, is array of j, which is 17, is that less than array of lowest? Array of lowest is going to give us 10. Nope, that's not true. So we don't update it. Lowest is still 2. So what we've done now is we've figured out the index. At the end of this loop here, we know that the lowest index, the item that has the lowest value, its index is equal to 2 in this case. Now what we need to do is swap. So if you look at the pseudocode, what we do is take the value we initially started with, where we first began, which was at the first item right now, we swap that with the position of the lowest item. So that means we're going to swap 0 and 2. This and this. And to do the swap, we can do it many, many ways. We could do it with our temp. So we could make temp equal to, let's do array of I. And then we set array of I is now equal to array of lowest. And then we do array of lowest, if I could spell, equal to temp. And add our semicolons. So hopefully the swapping itself, the logic makes sense. You can, of course, use the fancier syntax as well. I'll show the same solution written in ES 2015 at the end. Okay, so this should give us a swap. And let's see what happens. Let's just take a look at what we get printed out. Let's go through at the end of each time. Let's do console.log array, just like that. And actually, rather than just doing this, what if we print, so I'm going to do a console.log array, and then this is going to be kind of annoying, console.log swapping 2, and then console.log the array afterwards. Okay, and then to make it easier to see what's happening each time, this is a lot of work just to show you what's happening. And you probably already know what's happening, but I'm just going to put these dividers in there so we can see. Okay, so now if we run this, and I'm going to make my console larger. Where do we start? Whew, here we go. All right, so what happens? We start with this state, and we make a swap. Here's our first swap. We move 10 to the beginning. So then we start with that state, and we're looking at these, and we move, what do we move? 17 to the beginning, as you can see there. Now we're looking at these 3 at the end. And 19 is the smallest, so we move 19 to the beginning, as you can see. Now we have these 2. And what do? We swap 22 to the beginning. All right? Now we have one element left. And what are we doing? Well, we're still swapping. 34 is the min, and you can see our code is still running. We're swapping 34 and 34. And then this is the return value at the end. So the code works, which is good. At the end, we get the sorted array, and it is selection sort. But there's a change we can make, which actually I think will be better illustrated if, for example, if I did this, 0 and then 2 at the beginning of this list. And I guess we can keep this. Actually, I'm going to get rid of this because it takes up so much space. I'm just going to console.log the items that we're swapping. So console.log I and lowest. And you'll see what happens. So I'm going to clear my console, rerun it, make this bigger. So the first time through, if we look at what that list looks like, the min is 0, but we go all the way through the list because we don't know that, and we find out that 0 is the min, but we still swap index of 0 with index of 0. And that results in nothing. We're doing this is unnecessary because we found that I was actually the same as the lowest. And the same thing happens again. The next item, index of 1 is our I, and we set the min to be, or the lowest to be 1 as well. We go all the way through and there's nothing smaller. So at the end, I and lowest are the same, and we still do a swap. And actually, you can see that happens at the end as well. We have one thing left, 17. Well, we still swap 17 with 17. So a slight change that we can make to fix that is just do a check. I actually think I put this in the pseudocode, yeah. If the minimum is not the value you initially began with, then swap them. Right now, we're just swapping no matter what. So we just add a conditional. If, and we'll just do if I is not equal to lowest. If that's the case, we're going to do our swap. So if I rerun this, whoops, clear down here, rerun here, there we go. Now you can see we're only making 4 swaps. We didn't make a swap here, we didn't make a swap here. But then we made 1, then we made 2, then we made 3, and then we made 4, and then that was it. We're done. Okay, so I have the same code, get rid of the console.log, but written with ES2015 syntax. So if you prefer that, I brought swap out into its own little function up here. And now if you look at our logic down here, it's pretty short. We can do it on a single line, which I could have done the same thing. I could have moved all of this into its own function called swap as well. But here are 2 versions, and pick whatever you like. I'm using the newer way of swapping data. So same thing though. Loop over each item, set lowest to be I. Then we start j at I plus 1, and then we just check. I actually did the reverse logic, or the reverse comparison. I checked if lowest was greater than array of j. Up here I did if array of j is less than, I mean, it's the same thing. And then we just reset lowest, and then at the end, if I is not equal to lowest, swap them.